Hello Year 11 and welcome to this tutorial on completing Section B of your devising log. No matter whether you're doing it as an essay or as a scrapbook, you are going to need to have the following things. First of all, please make sure that your name is on it somewhere. Secondly, you must make sure that you have the title as written here. And then you are going to divide it into 4 sections. So these each need to have a subheading as seen here. Pause the video and get your document set up to look like the one on the screen. Okay, so now we're going to really focus on the first little section, which is about how you actually structured your performance. Essentially, what you need to think about here are those very early conversations that you had in your group about what was actually going to be the contents of your performance, what scenes were going to be in it to tell your story, and what characters were needed to tell that story. Here is an example. Pause the video to read it. Notice how it's written in the present tense. So you need to make sure that you're writing this as though you have not yet performed your devised piece. Okay, so now it's time for you to have a go writing this paragraph for your piece. On the screen there are a few prompt questions which you can work your way through to help you structure your paragraph, but you don't have to stick to these. Make sure you pay attention to things like spelling, grammar, punctuation, using good vocabulary. All of those things are going to make a real difference to your mark. Pause the video and get this section done, and then if you want to, you can stop and carry on tomorrow or on a different day. Okay, so if we go back to our essay plan, we can give ourselves a tick for the first chunk, and now we can move on to the next part, which is about how we developed our individual character for the piece. So again, essentially, you are telling the examiner what character or characters you are going to be playing, and most importantly, how are you going to use your acting skills to show that character. Again, here's an example, so pause the video and have a read of this. Notice that it's not very long. You don't need to tell the examiner absolutely everything. You just need to summarise your character and give a few of the key vocal and physical points. Okay, so now it's time for you to have a go writing this paragraph for your piece. On the screen there are a few prompt questions which you can work your way through to help you structure your paragraph, but you don't have to stick to these. Make sure you pay attention to things like spelling, grammar, punctuation, using good vocabulary. All of those things are going to make a real difference to your mark. Pause the video and get this section done, and then if you want to, you can stop and carry on tomorrow or on a different day. Okay, so if we now go back to our essay plan, we can give ourselves a tick for that second chunk and move on to Rehearsing Ac. For this section, you're going to want to choose one specific scene from your performance that you feel you personally contributed a lot to. And you're going to talk the examiner through the process of how you created, developed, and rehearsed that scene. Most of you will have followed the same structure when you worked on a scene. So you started off by discussing and improvising some ideas around what happened in the scene. Then you probably went away and wrote some kind of a script. You then blocked out the scene, working out exactly where people would be standing, moving, what set might be on stage, and then finally you went away and learnt your lines, and that gave you the opportunity to then come back and rehearse and refine and improve your performance. Remember, the focus here is on your performance. Once again, here is an example explaining that process. If you read through this, you should see where this student talks about the early stages and then the script writing, then the blocking, and then some of the improvements that we made. Pause the video now and have a read of this. Okay, so by now hopefully you've decided which scene you're going to write about. So on the screen there are some prompts to help you. Pause the video and have a go at writing this chunk, and then as always you could stop and give yourself a break before you move on to the last little bit. So going back to our essay plan, we can now give ourselves a tick for the third little chunk and move on to the last part, which is about those last minute tweaks and improvements we made before the performance. Most of what you're writing about here are going to be those last minute changes that maybe weren't made until that very last day when you were off timetable in the theatre, getting your piece completely ready for the audience. Often they are things to do with staging, lighting, sound. The transitions between scenes are often something that gets worked on at the very last moment. So you need to really think back to the piece and the final tweaks that you made. Probably I spoke to you about some of the improvements that you could make after you'd done your dress rehearsal. So try and think, talk to the other people in your group and try and think of at least one or two specific examples of things that you worked on right at the end to get your piece performance ready. Once again, here's an example to show you the kind of thing you could be writing about. Notice how short it is. You really don't need to give many examples, just mention refining the piece. So here are some final prompts to help you write your final chunk. And once you have done this, you can give yourself a big pat on the back. Make sure you print out your work or email it to me, and double check that your name and the titles are correct. Well done!